on.
Just hold them on the ground right there.
What?
Hold them.
Wait, she's on it.
We just should have got.
On a booty butt me. Like literally butt me.
Should have got fainting goats. It'd be a whole lot easier. Alright.
Like fainting a board. 1, 2, 3.
47.6. 47.6. So the goats are in this paddock on this side. So just for the sake of comparison, and they haven't eaten all this stuff. They've only been in here 5 days. And it's a big area. It's at least half an acre. But I don't know how easy it is to see, but this is kind of the state of the underbrush where they have been. And you can tell they can't get that high, but it's, you know, it's pretty well all eaten up down here. In comparison to where they'll be next, over here. Make that a little easier. So you can see that's what they have to look forward to. Lots of green. And this is what they're coming out of. Not a whole lot of green. Here we are a little after 7 in the morning. And the goats didn't used to do this whenever I would show up in the morning. But now they get grain feed. So they're excited to see me. We had not intended to feed them grain. But I'll tell you why we decided to do that here in just a few minutes. Let's talk a little bit about why the goats are eating grain, and they weren't originally, and what made my decision kind of for me. So at some point in this video you'll see us weighing goats, which we wanted to do. We have a small enough number of goats and we don't have the equipment to do a large number of goats, but because the goats are young, they don't weigh too terribly much and they're smaller, we thought the best thing for us to do would be to see if they're actually putting on weight, give us an opportunity to kind of check their body condition, check their hooves, check their eyes to see if they're anemic for any reason. And so we spent some time weighing them. When we first got them, we did not weigh them, and I kind of wish that I had. I think the first time we weighed them was about 4 weeks after we got them, and the purpose that we did that for was, I believe that they had barber pole worm, and we needed to check all their eyes to see how they looked. So as we were doing that, we thought, okay, well, what better situation to kind of go ahead? We got to put our hands on every single goat, so we'll go ahead and weigh them. So we did that, and we got initial weights on them, of course, like a month after we got them, but initial weights on them, and found them all to have pretty poor eyes. And so I know I've mentioned it before, but we treated them. And I wanted weights because we used levamisole or Prohibit to deworm with. And I know some people probably would significantly disagree with doing that because it doesn't have the threshold where if you overdose, there's that big safety net on it. Prohibit is a little bit more concerning about getting the proper dosage. So we weighed all of them and got actual weights, not estimated weights, not weights based on a tape measure, which you can do to get an estimate, but we got actual weights on all of them. And then we gave them a dose with Prohibit based on the weights that they had. And we've seen better eye condition show up several weeks after. It takes some time for that to come back from what I understand. But anyway, so we we did that, and then I thought, okay, well, we'll just keep weighing them on a regular interval. So we weighed them 2 weeks later. 2 weeks later, when we weighed them, we found that in a 2-week period, they were losing on just forage, which, I mean, we have plenty of forage. This is not something where they're starving. They've got grass, they've got browse, they've got things that they love to eat. They've got full bellies. But what we found was that across the 16 goats that we had, we were losing an average of 1/8 of a pound a day. Not gaining 1/8 of a pound a day, we were losing 1/8 of a pound a day. So this was my fault to a degree. So I thought, you know, hey, we've got all this great forage for them. They're going to come out here and they're going to eat this and they're just going to thrive. But I bought goats that came from a guy that was feeding them grain, which is not his fault. I mean, he told me that. I knew that. I knew that they were eating a pretty good bit of grain when they came from him. And I just not paying attention to some of the things that I had read saying you need to get goats that are going to be in a very similar type scenario as how you want to run them. Which, I mean, it's not like they don't know how to eat. I mean, here's the smallest goat over here pushing down branches and getting leaves and berries from the tops of these bushes. But the problem is that their body was not conditioned to thrive just on this. So I talked to a friend who has been helping me with a lot of different things, and she recommended that I get a quality grain feed and start them off slow so that they don't end up with diarrhea, and then build them up a little bit. And then, you know, she said, and this is the hope, you don't have to keep them on grain. You just need to get them in a better body condition. You need to get them gaining weight. Maybe later we can taper them back off of it and see if they can thrive. Maybe next spring, when we get a spring flush and everything's coming up real strong, we'll start to see them really hammering the feed as it's coming out on pastures and in the brush. And maybe we'll see that they are going to gain weight. But data is the only way that I can do this. I can look at them and I can say, well, that one looks better, that one looks worse. But it's really hard to tell. We thought they were looking pretty good after having eaten all this stuff. So we started them on grain, and I'd hoped to weigh them again about 2 weeks later, but I got sick, and then a lot of other people got sick. And so then we decided to weigh them. It was about a 4-week period. It's actually 31 days. Just hold them on the ground right there.
What?
Hold them.
Wait, she's on it.
We just should have got.
On a booty butt me. Like literally butt me.
Should have got fainting goats. It'd be a whole lot easier. Alright.
My fainting aboard. 1, 2, 3.
47.6. 47.6. 3 to 55 pounds. Hopefully.
Alright,
This is
you gotta get a good hold on it.
55.2. 55.1.
hold on. This is Button.
Yep. And we took weights of them, and they were, I started them out at 1/4 of a pound per goat of grain. And then after 1/4 of a pound for a week, I stepped them up to 3/8 of a pound. And that's kind of what I've kept them at. And they seem to be able to eat it relatively quickly. I don't want them to bloat by eating too much. In the winter, we may go up to 1/2 pound just because they'll be on hay, which is poorer quality than what they're getting out here, at least from what I believe. So we gave them 31 days on grain, starting at 1/4 of a pound per goat, and then after 1 week going up to 3/8 of a pound per goat. And what we saw was, instead of losing, we increased over that 31 days an average of a little over 4 pounds. So it was something like 0.13, 0.14, 0.15 pounds per goat per day. Some less, some more. We saw some goats gain close to 6 pounds, and we saw some goats only gaining a couple of pounds. But we are headed in the right direction, and you know, that's the goal, is to figure out these things bit by bit. So we'll keep weighing them. Probably in a month we'll weigh them again. I think the goal is to go to just weighing them once a month. But usually right after I feed them grain, they come out here, and this is what they do. It's almost like it boosts their appetite to get some more feed. And they're getting a little bit bigger, and they're able to do a little bit better job of kind of pushing some of these bushes over. I think they're also just figuring it out. But anyways, we're headed in the right direction. So they are chowing down. And I'll tell you, it's a little bit easier to catch one if I need to look at their eyes or check out a spot or something like that on them. It's also a whole lot easier to move them because I don't have to push them or herd them. I just move them at feeding time. And then we take the bucket from one place to the next. We set it up inside the new fencing, and they just follow it. And I don't have to worry about anybody running off because they're wanting their feed. So it has its positives. That's what we're doing right now. I'm sure things will change in the future. So thanks to Dad, what used to be a falling down, decrepit old shed right here is now no more. After I pushed some of it down with the lawn, or with the tractor, Dad started breaking it up. You can see in the background that he piled up the wood. That's the non-pressure treated wood that will burn later. It's all rotted, it's no good. And then he went through just all the junk that was in there and started pulling out stuff that's chemicals, and then stuff that's plastic and that's trash. There's a few things over here that are actually useful that he kept. There's some wheels and traffic cones, and a little bit of wood that's halfway decent, funnels, maybe even a gas can. And then beside that, there's a whole bunch of scrap metal. And so I gotta load that up and take it down the road, or get somebody to come get it. But anyways, he did all this week. So much for coming up to Buckwheat Hollow Farm and having a nice vacation. So come visit us if you want, but expect maybe you get to do a little bit of work while you're at it. And then Mom, oh, also there's this thing. This was in there. It doesn't work, but I'll probably put it on Facebook Marketplace and see if somebody wants a parts tractor or lawnmower. Mom continued Nikki's work that she's been doing for quite some time. And when she wasn't reading to the kids or coloring with the kids, she was up either helping pick apples, or she was in the kitchen cutting up apples for drying and making applesauce. So Nikki's already put a bunch of that up, and Mom just kept adding to the stores that we have. The apples are running out right now, so we are almost done. What you need? Dad really wanted to try and get this thing running, but I don't really have any use for it, and we didn't have a whole lot of time. So anyways, thanks Mom and Dad. Ooh.